interview series. I am here with Aeriahna. I pronounced it correctly? Yes. Okay, awesome. So I actually met her here at Vasa. I was like on the phone with my husband, and she walked up, she's like, I love your leggings! And then I accidentally Instagram somehow knew that I saw her at the gym, which is really creepy. And she was on my not my sponsor thing, but like the hashtags or whatever that I follow. And so I was like, oh, I know her. And then I was like, if you follow her, I'll put her Instagram name right here. Definitely go give her a follow. But I was like hooked after I watched her Instagram stories and what she posts, because she's just like so dedicated. She's super hardworking. She's really motivational. And so I was like, I have to interview her. So we'll go ahead and just jump right into it. First of all, thank you for letting me interview you today.
Yes.
So full name, age, or surfer?
Are we talking middle name too?
No.
So my name's Aeriahna Homelessness. I am 22, almost 23.
Oh, no, that's what the same age.
Yes.
So my first question is, how did you get into fitness, and were you an athlete in high school?
So in high school, I was actually really jealous of people in sports. My parents, I come from a really large family, so it just wasn't within their means to put any of us in sports. So I had a lot of friends that were like in volleyball, etc., and they're all very athletic. And back in high school, I was overweight, so I kind of associated sports to being fit, to being liked, like all in the same group.
Yeah.
You know, the popular kids, the jockeys. And so I always wanted to do sports, but I never did. I started doing the P90X at my house, which I feel like most people are pretty familiar with that.
Yeah, I did that too in high school.
Yeah, so a lot of people started out with that, and it got me hooked. It kind of like lit that part of me that's really driven. I've always been like, if there's a problem, I'm like, I don't really care. I think there's a way. Like my mom even told me when I was little, I was the only one who wouldn't take no. I'd be like, no, how about this? How about this? I would like bargain. I would like find ways around it. And so, I don't know, I don't like to take circumstances for what they are. So, kind of set that up, and once we saw progress, it kind of like lit my fire, because like I could see that if I made this much progress now, this is my new starting place. Yeah, and then I can make this much more, and like you're just building, and you're getting to a better starting place every day that you can, move forward.
Is that mindset something that you think you acquired through experiences, or do you think it's something that you always had? So are you born with it, or do you learn it?
I think it absolutely can be learned to some extent. I like to think that I got it from my father. Growing up, he just could fix everything. He could do everything. Whenever there was a problem, it was like he had a solution. So I think a lot of it was just seeing him overcome things, and then just kind of understanding that it can be overcome. I don't know if I've always had it. I just remember I don't ever remember not being this way.
So you were taught it, and you've been like that your whole life.
Yes.
Okay.
And I apply it to different things in different ways. It can be destructive and good.
I totally feel that one.
Yes, because I'm unfortunately an extremist.
Yeah.
So
all or nothing.
All or nothing, and that's actually, I think, my biggest weakness.
It's
my
mine
biggest
too.
strength and weakness. So my goal in life, honestly, is to find better balance. But I am still grateful that that's who I am, because I would rather be able to like apply myself and like focus on something, because it's gotten me very far with many things. I mean, it can be applied poorly, right? Considering eating disorders or something. I was really good at that. Right. You know what I mean? Like I could really apply myself to something. So I succeeded in my goal when I was
even
in that
if it was
mindset.
unhealthy.
Yes. Yeah.
So my next question is, when I do these interviews, I always send out like a sheet for them to fill out so I can get to know them better. So something that she had mentioned that was like a big part of her life, or even a big problem, something that helped her grow that she's overcome, is that it's about eating disorders. So I want to kind of talk about your experience with eating disorders and where you are now.
Sure. So in high school, I went through a lot of there's so much information out there that when you're educating yourself and you come from having no understanding of, calorie deficit, losing weight, ways to lose weight. I had no idea about carb cycling or macros or anything. So this was back in the before time for me in terms of understanding. So the only way that I was able to see progress was by reducing my caloric intake. And that was my only understanding of how to lose weight. And so it started out small. I was like, oh, let me set my calories at this. And then you set at that amount of calories without using other techniques, you'll plateau. And I had no idea about that phenomena or even that the body worked that way.
Right.
So the only way I could break my plateaus was to keep slowly, like, decrease. And I didn't even realize, and I was completely in denial about my situation until, you know, unfortunately, I realized it was a sickness by the point in which I was so sick that, like, I was in a conversation with somebody and I would think something was funny, and, like, I couldn't physically laugh out loud. You know, when, like, that point, I think in prep, when you're just peakly exhausted. You don't want to respond. You don't want to react because you don't have the energy to, like, give that response.
Yeah.
So that was happening. I remember one day I cleaned up my hair, I cleaned up my room. And on my floor, I, like, was about to vacuum, but I was, like, picking up little things so I could vacuum around it, you know, and I didn't, like, get anything big in the vacuum. And I, like, scraped my floor, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, excuse my French. There was just so much hair, and I started to realize, like, all this hair that was on the floor, and something I had begun to notice was that I was, like, having thinning. And, like, by the end of my whole process with my anorexia, I lost more than half of my hair and my gallbladder, because I wasn't consuming a lot of calories. I wasn't consuming a lot of fat to pretty much release bile.
Yeah.
Yes. So then I started having intense gallbladder attacks, and I went to the hospital a few times for it, and they almost had to remove it because I wasn't consuming anything for the body to release that bile.
Did your family know at this point that you had this problem, or did
So
you just...
my mom, when she was younger, had eating disorders, and so she was worried.
Yeah.
She observed things because alongside my anorexia, I also dealt with bulimia. So there would be occasions where I would just binge. Like, when I say I'm an extremist, I mean, like,
I know that
at least 10,000 calories, and I mean at least. If you know, like, if you've been there, you know you can literally consume that much. You know what I mean? And so I would go on intense binges, and then I would throw myself up, and really awful symptoms that came along with that. I have, like, scars on my hands from that. I have, I started having, like, GERD, where you get acid reflux all the time.
Yeah, my daughter had it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I still have it to this day, unfortunately. But a bunch of symptoms started happening with that. My mom just noticed I'd, like, eat and then I'd disappear, or something like that. And I kind of developed also what some people refer to as the mental state of anorexia nervosa, which is where you want to cook for people. Like, I wanted to smell your food. I would be happy to cook you a full meal. I would watch my family eat. Yeah. Eventually, I finally realized, and, like, it was like this aha moment where I was like, this is messed up. I can't keep doing this. Like,
do you remember that moment? Did you have, like, a distinct moment, or no?
Yes. The moment I'm thinking of, I was sitting in my sister's car with her, and it's like your perception, even on prep, you get, like, this dysmorphic view of where you're actually at. And I was like, my whole face was sunken in, like, I loved it at that point, right? You're like, I worked so hard for this, but then I was, like, realizing that I was just, like, it hurt to lay down, like, because my bones, like, were constantly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you've been really lean and you've laid on the floor or something, and, like, your hip bones are stabbing you, and, like, your rib cage hurts, and, like, I don't know, I remember telling my sister, like, I think I have a problem, and, like, I didn't know how to help myself, and I remember the only way I actually got out of it, which is a totally different tangent, but I came across this YouTuber that was vegan, and she consumed excessive amounts of calories and lost a bunch of weight doing it. And I know, like, just a lot of food, so she did it in the form of fruits and vegetables. So
high volume.
High volume, also high calorie, and I don't know why she can do high calorie, but high volume, period.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just saw that, and it was like, I want nothing more than to eat and, like, be okay.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the way I finally got out of it was letting go. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Unfortunately, I got up to almost, like, 150. That's actually, going vegan, I got to the starting place of the photo in my Instagram. So I was really, really heavy, like 183. And then when I started my Instagram, it was for accountability, and I started that around, like, 153. So I had gone anorexic and then bounced back to that weight. And that was when I'm like, I'm going to, for once, take it steady and slow and, like, try and lose this weight. And it was, like, kind of like accepting that I had to accept the process. And that's when things finally changed. It took forever. It took, you know, it takes way longer than some kind of fad diet.
Yeah.
But it was the only
lifestyle
time.
change.
Yes. I finally accepted that I had to make a change that was going to last, and the only way to do that was to make it a lifestyle.
Wow. So do you ever have relapses or anything along those lines?
Sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
With prep?
yes. Prep is a very triggering environment for me. I think, for me, it's seriously hard to prep. And I know, I mean, everyone knows what it feels like to prep, but it really triggers my eating disorders, and I can't say that I abstain from not doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and what I mean by that is mainly the bulimia and binging. Like, there comes to a point in prep. This last prep, I did great because I didn't even let myself have cheats. Like, I didn't have any cheats.
What was it like post-show after not having any cheats, though? Sorry, I'm jumping.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. So, after not having cheats, it was actually the best mental place I went in prep. I think my prep was so good because I was in a good mental place. I was ready for it. I took a year off. I was like, you know what? I don't care what it takes. I'm accepting that this might suck. And I just got to at least do it one more time.
Yeah.
And give 100%. I just have to give 100%. And I knew that's what I wanted. To just know what product I could produce if I gave my all. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so I was like,
just one time.
focus on that. You just got to see what you can do if you give 100%.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people don't. A lot of people never know what it's like to give 100%.
You don't know what it's like to follow the entire process 100% the way that you should, executing everything as your coach tells you or yourself,
Yeah.
and seeing what you produce. Most people are fighting themselves and their actual potential. You don't even know your potential because you're not giving 100%.
Yeah.
But
So what was it like post-show? I'm sorry.
So, no, it's
I'm
okay.
just so interested that I'm like,
I'm down for it. Post-show is always hard for me. My good friend and I, we compete together usually. Well, we have many times, Becca McCormick, and we both really enjoy our post-show festivities,
Right.
and
as everyone does.
as everyone does, it's healthy, you've earned it.
Yeah.
But I had a really hard time, even this last prep, leaving it at that. And so I did lose control yet again, and it's like I spent a lot of time trying to work on my mental health. Before, it's why I've gone almost a year and a half since my last show, because I have not been ready mentally. And I want to be impatient and jump into it, but I don't want to be in a bad situation going into it. You know what I mean? I might get on track, which would be amazing, but I don't want to start in a shitty place.
Yeah.
So, coming out of that show, I did do a lot of binging, and I did put on weight. I rebounded probably like 25 pounds in the first month and a half.
Woo! Hey, me too.
What's
It
up?
happens.
It does happen, but I'm following many people who've just gone through preps and stuff on Instagram, and like the biggest thing with that is you cannot let one day become 100. Like,
Right.
that is it. You know
Like,
what?
You have to stop
Your
saying
body
tomorrow.
will come back from 3 days of craziness. Absolutely. Like, you get in such a mental place at the end of prep where you're like, this is going to ruin me. Like, a cheat meal, I noticed the difference, so this is going to ruin me.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It won't ruin you. I'm sorry about that. It won't ruin you. And you have to, like, forgive yourself and also allow yourself that, because it's completely normal to want and need that physically because your body is screaming for it. Like,
It's prep. Yeah.
you're going to a place where you shouldn't be all the time.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. That's what the sport's about. And that's why it's so hard. And that's why many people don't do it, you know, successfully.
Right.
But yes, the post show was
Rough.
pretty
And it is
difficult.
for a lot of people.
Yes, yes. And, you know, my biggest goal this year, because I will absolutely compete again, is not focusing on even the show. Like, to me, it's going to mean everything to get through prep, because it's been so difficult for so long for me. But I really want to put a lot of energy into post-show. A lot of people focus on the show.
Yeah.
You should really be focusing on post-show, because if you can learn how to sustainably prep, then you can do amazing in shows. But if you're the person who keeps going into a prep and just going psycho, like binging, and you're going back to ground zero every single time, you're never going to get anywhere in this sport.
Yeah.
And, like, when I think about it, I want to be sustainable, and I want to be able to go far and be, like, reasonably lean and then go into a show comfortably.
Yeah.
Like, I've never, ever been able to do that.
Right.
And
Or
I
you're
don't-
ready like a week, 2 weeks,
Yes.
3 weeks before.
yes, and, like, even, like, only having to do an 8-week prep comfortably would be amazing. Like,
I can't imagine an
I
8-week
can't
prep,
either.
honestly.
and, like, I've known people to do them, and they're totally fine. And it's like, you know,
You want to be in that
that's my
place.
goal, to reach sustainability.
awesome.
And I don't think you should reach for anything that you can't do and do it sustainably. I'm not saying prepping is 100% healthy all the time because there's lines you have to cross. But I do believe it can be done in a healthy manner.
Absolutely.
And so that's my goal, you know.
So the next thing that I want to talk about that I noticed when I was reading over her like questionnaire was the fact that you had said that both your parents lost their jobs, and so as a child you had a hard time financially. So I'm going to leave it open-ended, and I just kind of want you to talk about what it was like when you became homeless.
Sure. So, like I mentioned, I grew up in a really big family, so it took a lot to sustain us. At a point, my father had been working in his job for 17, 18 years. He was making like $40 plus dollars an hour, and she was, you know, making a really good income. And my mom, she was, she commercial cleaned, so she would, you know, clean places at night and whatever. So they both combined made a really decent salary. Not, you know, like send everyone to college kind of salary, but comfortable.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we lived in a pretty large house on a bit of acreage, enough to like house all of us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And at a point, you know, unexpectedly, my father lost his job. Several people got cut. It was during the recession.
That's what I was going to ask.
So it was
about 2008, 2009.
Yes. And so, literally 2008, he was one of the highest salary earners where he worked. So several people got fired for some kind of, like they got let go, laid off. And so a couple of them got rehired, but they were like way newer and did not have we had probably the highest income, you know, in this area. And so they didn't end up rehiring him. And then my mother, she also somehow lost her job at the same time. Like she lost the biggest account that she'd had, and then, you know, the other ones, her contract ended, et cetera, et cetera. And so, by that point, my parents stayed in foreclosure for almost 18 months in our house until we finally got evicted. And it was really cruddy because we actually all had the stomach flu when we got evicted. So the police were like yelling at us because we were like just sitting there as kids. And like, I remember like running to the bathroom, like throwing up. It was terrible.
Oh my God.
I don't want to talk about it.
Freaking pours.
Yeah. But anyways, like they, you know, threw everything on our lawn, and I'm really not trying to get emotional. I don't know why I am, but anyhow, we ended up losing that house, and they threw everything on our lawn, and we had a lot of stuff by that point. And I remember my neighbors coming like in the middle of the night and like stealing our stuff, and you know, just little things to add to it all. But eventually, we had nowhere to go, and for some time, we ended up being homeless. And you know, if it weren't for really good family friends literally letting us borrow their house, because they had a second house, and so after a period of time, they ended up letting us move in there for a little while, and that couldn't last for long because they actually rented it out to someone, and he, you know, revisited. It was actually Doug the Bounty Hunter's house. Random fact there. He ended up buying it, but if you know who that is. So anyhow, we ended up moving out of there, and one of my sister's friends, we were good friends with their family. They had like a 100-year-old house in the town of Sedalia. The best way to explain this house was, it was literally so old that you could see the wood, and then cement, and then wood, and then cement. And it wasn't circular wood. It was like flat, like, you could see the grain kind of thing. Wasn't steel.
No, it wasn't a log. It wasn't a log cabin.
No,
it was literally
it was like
siding
wood and cement.
Oh my gosh!
I think somewhere I have photos. Maybe I'll find those.
If she does, I'll put them in.
Yes. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
You know, you have to do what you have to do. But you know, that house it had mold in several places. It was contaminated water essentially. So we had running water, but we had one shower, which was in my parents' room.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
So I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. So
holy cow!
Yes, I have 8
gosh.
siblings. Yes,
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're all blood. You know, my parents have been married like 35 years, so you know. But anyhow, by that point, about 7 of my siblings were in the house, and slowly they started moving out with their friends. Like their friends' families took them in, essentially allowed them to live in a room or something. Just a better situation.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, I didn't drive.
How old were you?
Let's see. I think I was 12 or 13, if I'm thinking right. Maybe I was 14. But, you know, I was kind of like stranded. And so it's like, I was constantly trying to stay at my friend's houses or something, but at a point, 5 of us shared a room, and then the other ones were like there were no technical rooms in this house. There was one downstairs, so we just stayed in the upper like areas. And none of it was carpeted. It was all plywood, painted white, like for flooring, and like the kind that like, you know, can get really dirty really easily and stuff.
Splinters.
Yes, and I remember at a point there were like so many mice in my room that like it was infested. It was terrible. But you know, my parents were unfortunately stuck there for a while. My dad kind of got back into alcoholism. He used to be, you know, pretty seriously an alcoholic, and then that just re-triggered it all. And to this day, you know, he's had a problem. He just went to rehab for it, but he's finally out. But since then, I've had to work since like 12 years old. If I wanted clothing, if I wanted like my first phone, every single car I've owned, I've purchased. I bought my first 2 outright, and then have financed now the one that I have because I have anything reliable. But you know, I've literally paid for and earned absolutely everything that I have as a result. Which
So it has taught you an unwavering like dedication to hard work because it's the only way you got anything.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to get emotional. That's like
Oh, it's okay.
unbelievable. I'm sorry. I just can't imagine. But that, I mean, your situations and your past really has led you in, as crappy as it was, it really did. You are like you are destined for amazing things because of that drive and because of that mindset. Because mindset is 90% of anything that we accomplish in life. And I commend you, and I look up to you so much more even since just having this conversation with you because that's unbelievable.
Thank you.
That's crazy.
Don't
So
cry.
sorry. Oh my gosh.
Don't cry. You know, I'm thoroughly grateful for everything I've been through because it's never pushed me down. It's only made me work harder. And I truly, truly believe no matter what your circumstances are, that you can overcome it, and you just have to do everything you can in the situation you're in, and time will pass and the situation will improve. And, you know, another thing to really speak to is kindness. You know, if it weren't for the people who helped my family, we would have been absolutely, like, hopeless. Like, probably going, you know, from shelter to shelter situation. I mean, my parents were on food stamps for years while they tried to, like, rebuild themselves, you know. It totally ruined their credit, being evicted. Like, everything was ruined. They couldn't finance for apartments, for any kind of housing, etc. So, you know, it makes a big difference just treating people well. And
You have no idea what they're going through.
you have no idea. And, you know, kindness first. Get out of your head. Don't have an ego. Like, just focus on you and be kind when you can. Like, don't try and be better than other people, and don't try and, like, that should never be your goal. I don't know.
Right. So my last question is, and I think that you might have just led into it, but what is like your life's message? Like, what do you hope to tell everybody that you meet?
Something I want to include and something I want to tell people essentially is that you can have the craziest story, but you can still have what you hope for. And I guess what I mean is, like, even speaking to just focusing on my weight loss as an example, at a point I remember waking up every day and like constantly the first thing I would think about was everything that I needed to fix. Why I hated myself, like, and I didn't outright think I hated myself. It was just like I, in every way, was so unhappy with myself. I didn't think I was worthy of anything or anyone, and I didn't even think I would get skinny until, you know, anorexia came around. And then it was like I never really believed that if I had been at such a low, I could never reach for the highest high. And I think what I want people to realize is that it doesn't matter how low you are, you can still reach for the biggest dream that you have and reach it. Like, it doesn't matter where you came from, you can still have the same potential for whatever you want.
That is unbelievable. That is a beautiful message. I hope that everybody that touches you hears that. Because that's really strong. A lot of people need that. So anyway, on that note, we're gonna end. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will keep you guys updated on when the next one is. Make sure you guys go up and give her a follow. I will put her Instagram name right here. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. See you. So something that I didn't touch on is your autoimmune disease, and I just want you to tell me, or tell them what you just told me.
Okay, fair enough. So in recent years, probably the last year and a half, actually, after my last competition, after my whole binging situation, all of my symptoms were triggered. And if you're familiar with autoimmune diseases, you can trigger them and kind of switch them on and like cause a flare. And so I started having some of the craziest symptoms I've ever had in my life. Extreme fatigue. I almost fell asleep behind the wheel like 3 or 4 different times. Like, could not hold my eyes open. Like, could not. And, you know, pins and needles. Like, the list goes on. But in the end, along with that, I guess my message on that is that when you have really hard things in your life that might always be weighing down on you, in the end, dwelling on what you can't control is going to get you nowhere. So you should always focus on what you can control and, you know, focus on that day and what you can give. And so whatever you have for that day, give 100% of that, and that's all that matters. I don't think that every 100% is going to be the same as the other day, but as long as you're giving 100%, that's literally all that matters. And so
You can't focus on the negative because that does nothing.
yes. I don't want to get too much into it because it's kind of even hard to explain. Autoimmune diseases are very weird.
Yeah.
They're inflammatory diseases and they can have very varying symptoms. So it's hard to like figure out
What's wrong?
Well, you know, they were able to diagnose me.
Oh,
But the symptoms are insane.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, though, in the beginning, I allowed it to affect my training and to scare me every day. I was literally terrified. If you know me, you knew where I was at mentally. It was terrible, and I let it consume me. And you know, ever since I allowed myself to get above that and stop dwelling in it, everything is fine. Like, sure, situations and circumstances are not ideal, but my life is so much better by focusing on what I can do. So I guess when whatever it is in your life that's holding you down or, you know, limiting you in your eyes, you have to let go of that, and you literally just have to keep working like it's not even a thing. And it'll get you so much further.
Just keep pushing.
Yes.
Just never stop.
Yes.
I love that. Right. And on that note, we're going to end. Thanks, guys.